After the October mass shooting in Lewiston, some lawmakers have proposed new gun safety measures.
But one new bill that would introduce a so-called red flag law has lawmakers conflicted. Sierra Whaley has more.
A previously rejected proposal has made its way back to the Legislative Judiciary Committee to establish a crisis intervention order that'll give families and local law enforcement another tool to prevent gun violence in Maine.
The epidemic of gun violence requires leadership, urgent leadership, and a comprehensive approach.
Members of the public came to the State House to testify on LD 2283, an act to enact the Crisis Intervention Order Act to protect the safety of the public.
Gun violence is a public health crisis, and it is growing. The rate of gun deaths have increased 41% from 2012 to 2021 in Maine, compared to a 39% increase nationwide.
The so-called red flag law would give families and law enforcement an opportunity to petition for temporary confiscation of guns from someone who could pose a danger to the communities. Supporters feel this will fill the gaps of the current yellow flag law, which has been questioned more since the October mass shooting in Lewiston.
Our communities can't wait. We can't wait for another tragedy. We can't continue to do nothing while our Maine families are losing loved one after loved one to firearm suicide. Maine needs a solution that works efficiently, lawfully, and fairly, and that Maine-based solution is this extreme risk protection order.
Republicans have accused Democrats of using the Lewiston tragedy to push the bill forward. Opponents say procedures within the current yellow flag law were not followed before the Lewiston shooting, and this proposal could be unconstitutional.
After October, there's a marked increase in the number of times the yellow flag law, the existing yellow flag law, has been implemented and used across the entire state. It shows it's effective when it's implemented.
Lawmakers will decide at a later date if the bill will move forward. Sierra Whaley, WABI TV 5 News, Augusta.